Hello, welcome to my channel, which is all about backpacking, wild camping and trail running. So behind me here I've got the Lanshan 1, the Lanshan 2, which have been my backpacking tents of choice over the last 5 years or so. But a few people have asked me, which one should they choose? So in this video what I'm going to try and do is give my opinion on perhaps which of these tents is better under different circumstances, so you can then maybe make an informed choice about perhaps which one you prefer. Now I think these tents are fantastic for backpacking, and I've done a full review of each one on my channel, and I'll put the link to that below if that's of any interest. But just to summarise really quickly, the great things about these tents: so they're lightweight, they're made of really high quality materials, I think they're very well made and they've certainly been very durable. They've got great versatility with the door arrangements, and particular bonus is the fact that you can pitch the outer first and then the inner separately. They offer great excellent space for the weight that you're carrying, and of course finally they're just fantastic value for money as well. Downsides of these tents, well, they do take a bit of practice pitching and they can be quite hard to pitch correctly on really rough ground or sloping ground, and because they're relying on tension, it can be hard sometimes to get that tension right and be a bit fiddly. They've also got these very large panels, and although they're quite wind resistant, they are going to be very noisy when it's windy. And last of all, there's no really good ventilation on these tents. The only ventilation that you get is underneath them, and you can pitch them slightly higher, but that's the only ventilation, so they are prone, I think, in the UK, certainly in sort of early spring, late autumn, to a lot of condensation. But as I've said, they are excellent backpacking tents. So Lanshan 1 or Lanshan 2? Well, the first point's really obvious. If you're ever going to use this tent for 2 people, you're going to have to choose the Lanshan 2. And there is plenty of space in it for 2 people. I mean, my wife and myself walked the Colorado Trail. We were 30 days together in that tent and we're still married, so it can't have been that bad. I've also backpacked long trails in both these tents. So the Lanshan 2, I did the 500-mile Scottish National Trail using that tent, and last year I did the 300-mile Cambrian Way across Wales using the Lanshan 1 tent. So I have got good experience of using both of them. So when is the Lanshan 1 preferable to the Lanshan 2? Well, first of all, it's lighter weight. So I weighed it on the scales this morning. I think the Lanshan 1 came out at just under 850 grams and the Lanshan 2 was around about 200 grams heavier. So the Lanshan 1 is lighter weight. It also takes up slightly smaller space in terms of pack size. So I'm just a quick comparison there next to a can of beans so you get a bit of an idea. So it takes up a little bit less space. The main advantage for me on the Cambrian Way is its smaller footprint. Now both these tents have a pretty large footprint, certainly larger than something like a freestanding tent, but I found there were a couple of occasions on the Cambrian Way last year where I got the Lanshan 1 tent pitched, whereas I wouldn't have been able to do it with the Lanshan 2 when I've had enough room. So that was probably for me its major advantage. A couple of other things. My Lanshan 1 has got T-zips on it, whereas the Lanshan 2's got J-zips. And if you're going to buy any of these tents, definitely make sure you get the ones with the T-zips on the inner. Much better. And the final advantage, of course, of the Lanshan 1 is it is a little bit cheaper. So how is the Lanshan 2 preferable to the Lanshan 1? Well, first of all, it's got absolutely tons of space. I mean, if you're using it as a solo backpacker, it is palatial inside. You are going to have bags and bags of room. Now I was surprised using the Lanshan 1. That had a bit more usable space than I thought it was going to do. I was pleasantly surprised, but in this one, you've got a palace. Alright, so you're going to have loads of stuff for all your kit, which of course is great if you're having a particularly wet backpacking trip. So related to space, if you're very tall, you probably want to go with the Lanshan 2. I found in the Lanshan 1, although I said there was enough space, when I was laid down on my mat, my sleeping bag, there was just enough space, just enough headroom for me laid down, not to be touching the inner. Now I do know on the updated model from this, I think they did the 2024 model, that they made it slightly longer, so that might have got away with that issue. But if you're worried about size, you've no problems with this one. You're going to have bags and bags of room in that one. Now I think of these two tents, the Lanshan 2 is easier and quicker to pitch. So one of the things that I really liked about it when we were on the Colorado Trail was if we had a thunderstorm coming or some really bad weather, you can get the outer of this pitched, I reckon, in not much more than a minute, which is fantastic for getting out of bad weather. And obviously then at a later time you can then pitch the inner tent. So pitching wise, just great for getting out of bad weather. I think as well that because the Lanshan 2 uses 2 poles and it's tensioned across that ridge, I think it's stronger when it comes to high winds. So I felt much more comfortable in the Lanshan 2 in really strong winds than I did in the Lanshan 1. Well, I've never had this out in really bad weather, but this has put up with some ridiculously strong gusts. Alright, so I know that it can withstand really, really strong winds. Lanshan 1, not too sure. So, in summary, roomier, sturdier, easy to pitch, lighter weight, cheaper, more compact for getting in those smaller spaces. But that's my opinion, and as I say, whichever one you choose, you're going to get a great backpacking tent. So I'm just going to go over, maybe seam seal these tents again, just check them over, because I'm away on a backpacking trip next week in the far northwest of Scotland with some pals. So thank you for watching. If you've got any questions you'd like to ask me about either of these two tents, please drop me a comment. Till next time.